Can anybody else explain to me what the glazing and obsession over Jon Jones has been for Dana White over like the last 12 months? It's been more like 6, but I am constantly hearing him talk about how Jon Jones is the greatest, to the point where he's like yelling at reporters and different things. Like, he has even become a meme. Like, look at this.
As an educated adult who knows the fight business, you cannot deny that while Jon Jones is active, he is the greatest fighter in the...
Now, obviously, Dana White did not actually say Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time at President Trump's victory speech, whatever the case may be. But, like, the internet has kind of run away with this because it's so hilarious. And the thing is, like, Jon Jones is an incredible fighter with an incredible resume and an incredible history within the sport, but he's also been a huge liability to the UFC on more than one occasion. So I'm trying to understand, like, what is behind kind of this, I don't want to call it sudden, but just like the last sort of 12 months or so of Dana White praising Jon Jones to like the next level. Right? So we're going to get into that in this video. Before I do, if you wouldn't mind, hit the like and subscribe button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps grow the channel. I always want to just take a minute and thank you guys for watching. It really does. It means a lot to me that I get to just do this and, you know, make these videos for you guys. It's a lot of fun. It really is. So, like, let's just take a step back, right? If we look at Jon Jones' history, right, in the octagon, he's been almost flawless. However, there is an asterisk beside his name, right? Like, he's had wins over Lyoto Machida. Critics often say most of the big names on his resume were big and kind of on their way out, whether you're talking Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Chael Sonnen was supposed to be a weight class below him, all these different things, right? So for that is a criticism that a lot of people have. I don't know if I buy that, right? Like, he was doing this at such a young age, right? And absolutely just dominating all of these, like, veterans, even if they weren't veterans, like just incredible names within the sport, right? So that's one thing, right? One thing to kind of keep in mind. The other thing that's one thing that critics say. Another thing that people say, to me, the bigger asterisk beside his name, right, is the PEDs. And, a lot of people kind of jump to the defense, like, oh, okay, maybe that substance is no longer banned, or it's not banned in the amount that Jon Jones was taking it, right? That's what some people will say. Or, it was only that one time. Like, he was never, that we don't know, right? We don't know. And the thing to me is, like, just from a competitive standpoint, that puts him out of the greatest of all time discussion, right? Maybe he is, and by the way, like, I love watching Jon Jones fight, and some of his earlier work, like, these are masterpieces, right? When he was completely dialed in, there's no other way to put it, like, masterpieces of mixed martial arts is what we were seeing, right? But the question is, were those masterpieces him and himself, or was it in part due to the performance-enhancing drugs that he was taking, right? Like, there's an artist at work, but if you see that this artist is making things via, like, AI and computers and whatever, you're kind of like, are you really that good? You know what I mean? So this is kind of the discussion. And of course, a lot of people think, like, it wouldn't matter. Jon Jones would still win. If Jon Jones had never taken PEDs, he would still destroy everybody. Maybe, but we just don't know, right? And DC said in one of his interviews, right? He's like, I don't mind losing to Jon Jones if he's genuinely, like, the better guy. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I don't mind losing to Jon Jones if he's genuinely the better guy. But we won't know because he got popped, right? We won't know if he was the better guy or not. And it sucks, right? Because, like, I really like DC, and I think he is, like, the type of person you want as a champion. Just good guy. I guess Derek Lewis has different things to say about that, right? But he's seemingly a good guy, jolly fellow, good with fans, relatively friendly, relatively good person, looks after, high school kids and whatever, and teaches them wrestling, like all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the kind of guy you want as a champion, right? So to me, one of the big things, right, is like the Jon Jones glaze to me is a little bit unwarranted, because there are always going to be asterisks beside his name, just from a competitive standpoint, right? He got popped, right? Oh, Jon Jones is undefeated. Okay, well, he was DQ'd, right? He was doing the 12-6 elbows. People are like, oh, we should remove that from because they're legal now. It's like, yeah, but they weren't at the time, right? So you got to win within the framework of the rules that you're given, right? Now, that grounded opponent thing, that's over too. Should we overturn every single loss because someone got DQ'd because they hit an opponent illegally? No. Those were the rules at the time. Every fighter knew what the rules were. I'm pretty sure, I'm certain Jon Jones knew what the rules were. He violated them anyway. Right? So it's like, no, he's not undefeated. He had several close calls. Gustafsson, that one fight. Dana White even said he thought Reyes won. Right? So, there are a couple of these things beside his name. But the main thing is the PEDs. Like, he can never be the GOAT in my mind just because of that. Now, the other side of it, too, is who he is as a person, right? The dude has his demons. Everybody has their demons, right? Everybody has their things that they keep hidden. Jones's was a lot more public, and like a lot of the things that he did, whether it's assaulting his wife or drinking and driving. I don't know if he the hit and run. I think somebody died. I don't know all the details, right? But he was a liability to the UFC and the brand on more than one occasion, and so I'm just wondering, what is behind Dana White, glazing him so hard these days? Why? Right? He even said, when Francis Ngannou, I think Francis Ngannou knocked out Stipe or something like that. It was right after that. Dana White said, if I'm Jon Jones, I'm cutting to middleweight. Right? I'm going down a weight class so that there's no chance I'll ever have to fight Francis Ngannou. So is it the fact that Francis Ngannou is the, kind of poster boy for the PFL? Dana hates the PFL. He hates the fact that he kind of lost the chess match to Francis in a sense. And so now he's glazing Jon Jones as the greatest heavyweight combat sports athlete of all time. It can't just be that, right? To me, that seems like such a foolish reason, although who knows, right? And then this whole kind of holding up the heavyweight division just so that Jon Jones can fight Stipe for the undisputed belt, so that he gets maybe a title defense at heavyweight. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, right? I feel like the fan base, as much as they love Jon Jones, they realize he's 37, right? Maybe we've got 3 more years out of him, but he has said himself, this month this could very well be his last fight. Right? It very well could be. And this is probably Stipe's last fight too. Which, by the way, I want this for Stipe. I really do. I think that Stipe deserves a fight like this. As a fan, I'm not super interested in Jon Jones versus Stipe, right? But just the fact of what Stipe has done to the sport, basically ever since he got knocked out by Francis, he's kind of been completely sidelined and ignored for the last, 2 years, maybe 3. And I just think someone who's considered the greatest heavyweight of all time deserves a little bit better, and he deserves a good send-off. You know what I mean? But I just don't understand. But that's not the fight I want to see as a fan, right? The fight I want to see is either Jones and Pereira or Jones and Aspinall for the heavyweight belt, right? So, and I know that Jones is probably less interested in Aspinall just because that's a way more difficult fight. He's in his sort of, career-ending years. That fight with Alex Pereira is a lot more interesting and a lot more competitive. I think and a much easier win, right? If he takes the fight to the ground the way he did with Cyril Gane, he's probably gonna dominate. He's probably gonna dominate Alex in that way. But you never know, right? If that fight against Ankalaev gets booked, right, then we might not see that. But anyway, to wrap it up, I kind of went off on a tangent here. what do you guys think is behind this Jones glaze? Like, why is Dana going so hard in on this? It can't just be to sell the Madison Square Garden pay-per-view, right? Like, Jon Jones historically hasn't done great numbers, even from a marketing perspective, right? Like, he hasn't been on any of the highest selling pay-per-views, right? Maybe him versus DC. I don't know where that fared, but that probably would have been on the higher end of things. But even still, right, it doesn't come close to anything that Connor's done. You know, Ronda's done. I think I remember the last major pay-per-view. Like, it was good. It was fine, but it wasn't phenomenal. And, you know, he's not a guy that brings in sponsorships or things like that just because of who he is as a character. So, what do you guys think? Like, I'm just kind of rambling here. I don't really know what the angle is here for Dana White and the UFC, why they're glazing Jon Jones so hard. Is he a great fighter? Absolutely. Is he one of the best to ever do it? Probably. You know what I mean? I can't put him in the greatest of all time conversation just because of the PEDs. Do I think he could have won all of that stuff without them? Probably, right? But we'll never know. As EC says, we'll never know. And that's the problem. So, and I know a lot of you are going to come and be like, oh, yeah, well, everybody does it. They just don't get... Okay, but unless they get caught, we have no evidence. You know what I mean? Innocent until proven guilty. So, that's where I'm at. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.